let's go down memory lane for a little bit here. So the Bolsheviks were killing people. The Bolsheviks killed a lot of people. You can look this up. It's called Dekulakization. So back in the Soviet Union, there were when the Bolsheviks had first taken over Russia, there was a group of people called the kulaks. The kulaks were people who were small landowners. Now, they were not the ultra rich. They were not super wealthy. They were not part of the elites, but they were small landowners. And so on these lands that these kulaks controlled, there were peasants, right? They were the peasants. The kulaks were accused of abusing the peasants, hoarding food from the peasants, and they were held, or they were really deemed, I should say, as an enemy of the people, an enemy of the peasant class. So the Bolsheviks came out and said, well, the way that we help the peasant class is to kill the small landowners. And there was a genocide of small landowners in Russia. This is called dekulakization. And the kulaks were butchered by the hundreds of thousands. It was really, really horrific. It was a genocide. Straight up. It was a class genocide. It was not the genocide of people. It was not a genocide of people based on race or religion. It was a genocide of people based on their class. And one of the policies of the Bolsheviks was, in order to understand if a man is guilty, all you need to do is ask him what his class is. And if he tells you that he's a kulak, automatically he is guilty and worthy of death. This was the policy of the Bolsheviks. So the Bolsheviks were mass murderers. They were thugs, criminals. They were just evil, demonic people. I hate the Bolsheviks. And I've read enough about them to know that they were just monsters and evil. So the Nazis come along and they do what the devil does best. They prosecute. The Nazis come along and they start talking about Bolshevik violence. Now, the Bolsheviks, when they took power, they began talking about certain things that they had issues with. They started talking about grievances that they had. Their grievances was the abuse of the poor. That was their grievance. The peasants are being abused. The kulaks, they're abusers. They're evil. That was their supposed grievance. So they said, well, we have to come up with a solution. And the solution was what? Mass murder. The Germans came along and they said, look at what the Bolsheviks are doing. The Bolsheviks are mass murderers. The Bolsheviks are killers. And now the Bolsheviks want to take over Germany. Do you see right there what the Nazis did? They sowed seeds. They sowed seeds for mass murder. Seeds to cultivate the desire for mass murder. This is what the Nazis did. So they pointed to a fact to justify an evil. They pointed to one wrong to justify another wrong. So the Nazis, they had their own aspirations for mass murder. And they pointed to other mass murderers to justify their own mass murderous desires. And this is how the devils work. This is how Satan works. They don't call Satan the accuser for no reason. Satan accuses people for evil desires. Well, the servants of the devil, be they Bolshevik or Nazi, will point to abuses or grievances to justify other evils. And this is what they do. So, fast forward to our own time period. Israel has killed tens of thousands of people in Gaza. Israel is kicking people out of their homes. And the Bolsheviks, they were doing abuses, right? And the Bolsheviks, a lot of them, I'm just saying this as a matter of fact. YouTube, I am not promoting Nazism. Do not take down this stream. Not promoting Nazism. I'm exposing Nazism. Hate Nazism. Hate Nazis. I hate Bolsheviks. Hate Bolshevism. Hate communism. Don't take this video down. But there were Bolsheviks who were Jews. Don't shoot the messenger, but it's the truth. And so the Germans, the Nazis, they took advantage of this and they said, look at how murderous Jewish people are. This is what they did. So fast forward to our own time, and let's fast forward to our time, and let's look at what's happening now, and let's try to come up with a rough draft for the future, a rough draft of a prediction. Okay, so Israel has been killing people, and Turkey is saying what? Look at all the people Israel is murdering. This is what Jews do. This is what Israelis do. This is what Zionists do. They're murderers. Zionists are murderers. You have Zionists who are murdering people. So Turkey has what? More propaganda. Now, Turkey is the biggest threat to Israel right now. I've said this a gazillion times. But Turkey right now is the biggest threat to Israel. And what's happening right now in Syria? Right now in Syria, there is a quiet Cold War that's happening in Syria between Israel and Turkey. Israel is backing the Druze against the rebel government that is ruling over Syria and that was propped up by NATO. And Turkey is backing the new government of Syria, the HTS. And the HTS are a bunch of murderers, they're thugs. Ironically, well, maybe not ironically, but amazingly, the government is controlled by HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. HTS was formerly known as Jabhat al-Nusra, and Israel was funding Jabhat al-Nusra. So now Jabhat al-Nusra is ruling over Syria, and now Israel has a problem with the very terrorist group that it once funded to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. So Israel has really, I'll be honest with you guys, Israel has really screwed itself over. It really has. It supported Jabhat al-Nusra, and now it's fighting against Jabhat al-Nusra. Now it has a problem with Jabhat al-Nusra, and Turkey right now is supporting Jabhat al-Nusra, now known as HTS. So Turkey is in a Cold War with Israel, and Israel is backing the Druze against the government. Turkey is backing the HTS, and Israel wants for Syria to remain divided, because as long as Syria is divided, it is not a threat to Israel, and they want to make sure that Turkey doesn't have complete control over Syria. Because right now, Russia still has a military presence. Russia has its Hanaimim, or whatever you call it, air base, and then Russia also has its Tartus naval base. So Russia still has a military presence in Syria, and I've talked about this a billion times. And as I said last week, Israel is begging the United States not to push the Russians out of Syria, because Israel is hoping that there will be collision, that there will be conflict between Russia and Turkey to keep the Turks weak, because Israel is terrified of Turkey. So Turkey wants to invade Israel. Erdogan has made this very, very explicit. He's talked about invading Israel several times, and there have been calls made by other people in Turkey to invade Israel. So this is a very, very real aspiration that lies within the ideology of Turkey, ideology of Turkish nationalism, Kemalism, Turkish Islamism, etc. And so the violence against Palestinians is only going to get worse. And what's Turkey going to do? They're going to say, look at how the Zionists murder people. And Erdogan has said this. Erdogan said, look at how Israel is expanding into Syria, and perhaps one day Israel will try to invade Turkey. This is what Erdogan said. So Erdogan is making this implication, or he's making, not really an implication, he's expressing this worry. And he's sowing this seed into the minds of people that Israel could invade Turkey and could kill Turks just like they massacred and genocided Palestinians. And a lot of Israelis want to do genocide on the Palestinians. They do. They want to genocide the Palestinians. They want to throw all the Palestinians. They want to purge the West Bank and Gaza of all Palestinians so that Israel can expand itself, and they could build more settlements, and they could have Jewish living space, Jewish Lebensraum. And believe it or not, there was an article that was published weeks ago by the Times of Israel calling for Israel to have more Lebensraum, and the article actually used the word Lebensraum, which is a Nazi term. And the Times of Israel was so embarrassed by this that they actually had to take the article down. They took the article down, but I found it on the archives. Thank God for archive.is. You have all these calls for genocide against the Palestinians. What's going to happen if the Israelis actually do open genocide of the Palestinians? Or if they do just mass deportations? In any case, it's ethnic cleansing. Well, the Turks are going to say, look at how Zionists murder people, and they're going to murder us if we don't stop them. And thus will be a pretext, there will be a pretext by Turkey to invade Israel, go to war with Israel, and there will be another Holocaust. Because if there's anything that we know about the Turks, is that they are efficient at orchestrating genocide. They did it to the Armenians. They did it to the Assyrians. They did it to the Greeks. They're very efficient at this. Hell, the Germans were inspired by the Turks. You know who inspired Hitler? It was the Ottomans. The Germans watched. They were observers. They watched that Armenian genocide happen, and they said, oh, we can't stop this. Keep it going. And they saw, look at how the Ottomans used the train system, the railway system, to efficiently and systematically murder people. We can learn something. They were inspired by it. And when the Nazis took over when the Nazis took over Germany, do you know who was one of the main inspirations for Hitler and for the Nazis? Kemal Ataturk. Kemal Ataturk. The Kemalists were an inspiration, and really the Ottomans were an inspiration for the Nazis. And what did Hitler say? He said, who remembers the Armenians today? In other words, we can genocide Jews, Russians, Poles. No one's going to care in the future, just like no one cares about the Armenian genocide. And you know what the sad thing is? There's a kernel of truth in that. There is a kernel of truth. Because really, who today cares about the Armenians? Answer, almost nobody. Proof? You want proof of that? Look at what happened in 2020 in the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, in which Turkey did a proxy war against the Armenians, and the Azeri Turks butchered civilians. And they even filmed it. They filmed themselves beheading people. They filmed themselves doing executions. And no one gave a shit, and no one still gives a shit. So, in a way, what Hitler said was a dark reality. Who today remembers the Armenians? If the Israelis unleash a policy of mass extermination of the Palestinians, the Turks will say, look at what the Zionists are doing. You see how Zionists kill people? And thus will begin the pretext for the next Holocaust of the Jews. Now, go back to the past. What did Nazi Germany do? They said, look at how the Bolsheviks kill people. And a lot of those Bolsheviks are Jews. You see how the Jews kill people? This was the propaganda of the Nazis. You see? This is the propaganda of the Nazis. And that's how these things work. This is how genocides work. Genocides are always done by pointing to an evil to justify the genocide.